Hello, this is again a tough video, tell a friend video, this time on the topic pandemic or not. I analyzed it like from a top level view, but just looking at Germany. I could have looked at other countries, but I happen to live in Germany, and so it's very simple for me to do it for Germany. And now the thing is, there is so much information like statistics and how many people die, and the elderly and the old and the young, and all these different, is it dying of COVID, dying of an influenza, dying because of, and so on. So that is why I thought, hey, why do we always make it so difficult? Why do we make it so complex? Now the real analysis is very, very simple. In Germany, you have 80 million people. Yeah, and normally people live about 80 years. Women a little bit more, men a little bit less. So women, I think it's 85, men, I think it's 81. We are 82 million, but just, orders of magnitude here. Life expectation is 80. So we have about 1 million people that die per year. That's a little bit more than 1%. Now, if I look at the statistics, at the tables that you can actually download from statista.de, then I can see that 2020 we had also about 1% of people, a little bit more than 1%, because this is also a little bit more than 1% of people that die. And they die of several reasons: heart cancer, lung, flu, accidents, whatever, and it's mainly cancer and heart. I think heart is the first, diabetes and all these things, cardiovascular things, and so on. And then flu, lung, and that as well. Now, when you look at the kids, there's very, very few that die in terms of kids. Adults, and the green ones are the ones that can still replicate, so they can have kids. The elderly don't have kids in general. So I said like from 20 to 50, which is an important thing, not for this video, but for you to consider that when you look at what the impact of a pandemic would be on the population, because if all the adults would die, then you would have a very strange distribution of people of different ages, because then you will have to wait for many years until the kids then get in the state to have children, and so on. Or if a lot of kids would die, then it would take a lot of time to recover, and you would get this this aging profile of populations, which you also get when there was a war and so on. But what you have is very few kids die, very few adults die, and then you have the elderly. Like I started here with 50, which is because of the replication thing. After 50, there's very few that replicate. So then more and more people die, and at a certain age, and that is kind of 100 plus, at a certain age they all die. There's nothing we can do, so they all die. And when you look at 2020, then it's still 1%. And now, obviously, the last years here, when you are then 90, 95, 99, 100, 104 years, then it's kind of almost all these diseases are a threat to your life. Yeah, so that is normal. That is just the normal distribution. So just look at this is the normal distribution of people dying. Now, in 2021, I don't know yet, so I haven't put it in. I will download the Statista data, and I would assume it's a similar curve than this, but I'll see. But now what I want to do is I want to compare this 2020 and the so-called Corona crisis, or the so-called Corona pandemic, and I want to compare it to two historical pandemic situations. That was the pest, which actually killed about 50% of the population, and it killed kids, adults, and elderly. And obviously, the elderly at the end they all die because it doesn't go further here. It's kind of the end is here with about 100, and so that means this. Like 100% of these people, they die because that is our destiny at the moment, that we will all die. But like kids, adults, and elderly until like this age of maybe 60, 70, they have kind of the same mortality rate, which is half of them die. And then you look at the Spanish flu. And the Spanish flu, it was a little bit different because there was this problem of that mainly adults, younger adults, died because I think it was related to kind of they coming from war, having received a vaccine, and so on. So they were in a very strange situation. And so in the Spanish flu, we had about 33%, so a third of the people in Spain, and I think it wasn't all over Europe, but it was in France, Spain, Portugal, I think it was also Germany and Italy. So, but not the same distribution on all countries. So in the northern countries, it was a bit less. Now, so there you had 33% of people die, and that means a third of the kids, maybe a little less than a third of the kids, then maybe half or so of the adults, and then of the elderly as well. And again, like when you arrive at 80, 90, 100, you die. And so these two situations are pandemic situations. This is something I would declare, I would say that's a pandemic situation. Whereas if I look at this is a normal situation. So what I say is, and that's the conclusion of this video, is in 2020, we did not have a pandemic situation. We have a normal situation, just maybe there is some little quirks, maybe there's some little things, one person here, 5 people here, a little bit more, but it's not a pandemic. It is a specific threat, a specific flu that came in, that kicked in, and that was especially dangerous for people that have lung problems, especially dangerous for specific elderly people, but it was with preconditions, but it was not a pandemic because that is a normal situation, and the pest and the Spanish flu, they were pandemic situations. So now the thing is, have a look at the data. If you look at these 3 graphics, you have to, I think there's hardly any possibility to say that we have a pandemic situation. I'm very glad to receive, and I'm also searching for feedback and comments. Please comment, and maybe you have a different view. Maybe you say that that's a pandemic and that's a disaster. So, okay, then it's a different definition, okay? But I would say that's normal, because we could then draw it for 2010, 2000, and so on. We would have actually this graph. Now, the thing is, I don't say that we need to fight diseases, yeah? So that is reasons for dying. That's, try to not have cancer, try to not have heart diseases, cardiovascular diseases. And then there is also this big field of longevity, yeah? So there's a natural longevity, which you can reach by being fit and your nutrition is good, no stress, and so on. That is the kind of the natural longevity things. And then there is also some research in longevity where you can actually give a vaccine, you give medical treatments, you treat the blood and so on, and you increase this kind of this level of 100, and you try to kind of get that to maybe 120, 150, and so on. Yeah, and I would, in longevity, that's a very, very interesting topic, and I love that. So the natural longevity, where you just, as I said, eat healthy, you behave healthy, you do sports, and so on, you think positively. I think that can add something like 20 plus 20 years of years of quality life, yeah, where you are not like in the wheelchair, where you can do things and so on. Whereas the artificial longevity, I think there is no limit. I think in like 500 years, if we are still around, if we haven't killed us as a human race, in like 500 years from now, so in 2500, I think people will be able to live to 200 years or longer. How this longevity, this artificial longevity will be reached, I don't know. I don't know. Is this like if you have a coordinate system so that every 100 years you add, I don't know, 20 or 2020 and then 100 or something like, I don't know how that works. But there will be, like in the year 2500, I think people will say, it's strange that my grandparents died at 80 years. Thank you very much for listening. I think the future is bright. The future is in your hands. And I think that is the main message. Be active. Don't be passive. Don't be afraid. Live your life. Live your life to the full. Just do it. Thanks.